What happens when a major organization refuses to go down the upgrade path that SAP has laid out for them? It turns out, not so bad after all. I'm going to talk about what that is here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world reach their third stage of digital transformation success. And one of the major challenges and issues and questions that we're helping clients answer and solve right now is the question of what to do about their current ECC environment and how to upgrade to S4HANA, or if to upgrade to S4HANA. And the common narrative from SAP and others is that you need to do it now. Your maintenance and support is about to run out. You need to get rid of technical debt. You need to future-proof. You need to get rid of your customization and go clean core. All this stuff is rattling around in the sales and marketing circles of the SAP ecosystem. And it turns out not many organizations, or not enough organizations, are agreeing to that path. Recent studies have shown that a majority of clients of SAP still haven't begun the upgrade from ECC to S4HANA, and there's good reasons for that. However, there's still a subset of organizations out there that feel like they have to upgrade to S4HANA, or that they have no choice. And that's what makes this topic of today's video so interesting, because I've talked for a long time about how you have options. You don't necessarily need to go down the path of S4HANA, or if you do go down the path of S4HANA, you should be the ones to dictate the tempo, the pace, the strategy, and all that good stuff. But it's just been recently that a major company called Kingfisher, which is a large retailer out of Europe with 2,000 stores, decided, you know what, SAP, we're actually not going to go down the S4HANA path. We're going to stay with ECC. And guess what else? We're also going to innovate. We don't need S4HANA to innovate. We're innovative enough with ECC on the back office side of things, a system of record. So we're going to go pursue other alternatives with AI and other things I'll talk about in this video to realize the innovations that's being sold by SAP. So what I want to do today is talk about what exactly Kingfisher did and what that means to you and your potential roadmap for your SAP path going forward. Now, if you'd like to learn more tech agnostic and independent objective advice on how to handle your upgrade to S4HANA or your potential upgrade to S4HANA, be sure to read our Guide to Successful S4HANA Implementations. You can read that by scanning the QR code right here or go to the links below. So what did Kingfisher do instead of upgrade to S4HANA? Well, they didn't sit still. They didn't say that they're just going to remain on the legacy ECC system and just leave it alone. They decided that they're going to innovate. They're going to introduce AI. They're going to introduce cloud. They're going to introduce predictive analytics and all these different capabilities that are going to make them more innovative, but they're going to do it without S4HANA. It starts with cloud. They decided that they did, in fact, want to move to the cloud. So they decided to move ECC from on-premise to Google Cloud Services. So they're able to take advantage of the fact that this hyperscaler can host ECC for them, and they moved their instance of ECC over to Google Cloud without having to undo some of the customization and intellectual property and all the data they had built over the years in the ECC system. And what about support and maintenance? We all know that SAP is just a couple of years away from cutting off support for ECC. So what are they going to do about that? They're going to be fine. They sign a contract with a third-party support provider. This case was Rimini Street, although there's other third-party providers out there such as Spinnaker, and they decided that they were going to extend the support of their ECC instance up until potentially 2040, which is the sunset deadline that Rimini Street and others have placed on their own third-party support. And the reason they rejected the mainstream narrative that you should be moving to S4HANA instead is the CTO, who recently spoke at a Gartner conference about this, said that he was going to see a 20 times increase in some of the cloud costs with S4HANA is what they're paying for S4HANA, and he just couldn't justify it. There wasn't a business case there. It sounds basic enough, it sounds like common sense, but in today's day and age, common sense is lacking at times, and too many executives and boards and management teams get caught up in the appeal and the allure of moving to the latest, greatest, shiniest object, which in this case can be S4HANA. But Kingfisher didn't fall for it. They decided that the cost wasn't worth the potential benefit. Now you may be thinking, if Kingfisher didn't go to S4HANA, they're certainly not going to be able to take advantage of Joule AI and some of the other capabilities that SAP has rolled out. And you may be right that Joule is not an option for them, but there's plenty of other AI tools out there, and they decided to go with a third-party tool. And with these third-party tools that they've implemented, they've been able to focus on things like AI-powered recommendation engines, personalization, flexible pricing for their customers, and even chatbots that can provide better customer service. And again, they did this all using their back office ECC and not upgrading to S4HANA. Whether or not those AI chatbots and other AI capabilities are as good as Joule AI, I couldn't tell you, but it sounds like they're getting what they need so far and what they want to get so far from AI without having to go through the heartache of ripping out all the stuff they had built over the years within ECC. They've also re-engineered their entire tech stack to focus on an API-driven environment where APIs are what create or allow for integration between systems, between SAP and other third-party systems. So they created this API-driven environment where now they have a more modular, almost a microservice sort of environment with ECC at the core and other applications and layers of technology on top of that that all talk to one another within a cohesive environment. And this all demonstrates the fact that some organizations, including Kingfisher, are able to get innovation out of their current technology without having to fall prey to these tactics of thinking that technical debt is bad or that you're not future-proof if you're not on the most recent version of technology. They're actually modernizing and innovating as we speak, but they're leaving ECC in place as the back office system of record. And let's be clear, ECC is not a bad product. It's been around for a long time, it's stable, it's years or decades of innovation and R&D built in it. Organizations have built their own intellectual property within ECC. So there's some good stuff there within ECC. It may not be the greatest and latest, but it could be good enough for a system of record to where now you could put other technologies on top of it to leverage that and really finally fully get the business value out of ECC. And for many of you, you may have found that you still haven't recouped the cost of your initial ECC investment years or decades ago. In this case, this could be a perfect strategy for you to really milk those assets and to maximize the ROI on what you've already spent rather than taking a swing for the fences and just hoping that you hit that home run and somehow get a positive ROI when maybe you didn't even get it on ECC. So rather than trying again and hoping for the best and taking on the massive risk, Kingfisher decided that didn't make sense, and they were able to get innovation without going through all the chaos, pain, and heartache and cost that goes along with a massive ERP implementation. So what does this mean for you, and what does this mean for the ERP market in general? Granted, this is just one company, very large company, but just one company in the ecosystem that's decided to hold off on an ECC upgrade to S4HANA. But I think this is a sign of a broader movement and a broader backlash in the industry. I think SAP has been pushing so hard on customers to make that move from ECC to S4HANA, and they've been largely unsuccessful if you look at the metrics of conversion from ECC to S4HANA. And I think companies are starting to be smarter about making those decisions. They're not blindly following the upgrade path that the vendors have laid out for them. This reminds me a lot of Y2K back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So many organizations were panicked and they rushed to upgrade their systems, and it was just a mad rush of new software sales and implementations. And this is that next wave, except in this case, it's a manufactured panic and sense of urgency that just isn't working in the same way it worked in the Y2K. So this is good because I think companies are being smart and deliberate about it. They're not rushing off the cliff and just jumping straight into the unknown. They're taking a step back and waiting until they can see deliberate and measurable and definitive value and risk mitigation from those implementations before they do it. And I think competition has gotten so great within the ERP space that SAP can only go so far with their strong arm tactics. It may have worked in the past when they were the gold standard, and they are still a gold standard, but I wouldn't say they're the gold standard the way they used to be. Yes, their stock price is through the roof. Yes, they're still the largest ERP vendor out there. But there are just so many options out there now that weren't around on a material basis 10 or 20 years ago. You look at Workday, Salesforce, even companies like Boomi and non-ERP systems like that that have come out of nowhere over the last decade or more, and they are chipping away at SAP's market share, and they're making SAP less relevant to where SAP doesn't have the same leverage over their customers as they did before. I think this also forces vendors to be more transparent and more thoughtful about what is the real value to customers. In my opinion, it is not enough to say you need to get rid of technical debt. That's just garbage to me. That's just marketing nonsense that doesn't mean anything. It suggests that it's bad, but it doesn't mean anything. Technical debt doesn't mean anything. or future-proof. Future-proof is a made-up word that is completely false. There's no such thing as future-proof, but it makes you think that, oh, I want to be future-proof, even though S4HANA and every other ERP system that's out right now will eventually be obsolete. So that's a load of garbage as well. So vendors now have to shy away from this marketing speak, hoping that that's going to convince enough people to move, and they have to get back to the basics, which they should have been doing all along, which is what is the business value? How am I going to get an ROI from this? And if I can't, then maybe I shouldn't buy your software. So I think this is a good thing longer term, because I think it gets vendors back to the fundamentals of why they're in business and what their customers really want. They don't want future-proof. They don't want to get rid of technical debt. They want business value. Now, the dark side of this, if there is a dark side to Kingfisher's strategy, is it is still somewhat of a short-term or a limited runway. Third-party support for ECC will not last forever. They're saying now that it'll last till 2040, but who knows? It might last a little bit longer, or maybe it ends up lasting a little bit less. We don't know. We know it's at least enough to give several years of runway to Kingfisher and other organizations out there, but it's probably not a good long-term fix. Although, quite frankly, it may be enough to get us through the next wave of whatever's next after S4HANA. So we'll have to see. But it is something to be aware of, and that is a very real risk. So this is one example I've shared with you today with Kingfisher and their refusal to move to S4HANA and their alternative path that they pursued with their ECC environment. But what does this mean next? What should we be watching next? Well, first question I have is, will other companies follow Kingfisher's lead? I have a feeling that this is the start of a broader movement, and I think this is the next wave of SAP's cloud adoption strategy, and I think it's a backlash to their cloud adoption strategy. I think you're going to see a subset. I don't know how big the subset will be. You're going to see a subset of big companies that push back, use their leverage, and negotiate with SAP or push back on SAP and refuse the narrative that they're trying to cram down their customers' throats. I'm also curious to see how other vendors outside the SAP world respond, because I think a lot of companies follow SAP's lead and maybe to a lesser degree Oracle's lead. So I'd love to see how other ERP vendors respond to this potential backlash that SAP is seeing with some of its customers. I also wonder if third-party support will become better known as a more viable alternative for SAP customers and other non-SAP customers as well. For a brief period of several years, third-party maintenance providers were in litigation with some of the software vendors. I won't get into details of that, but that created some uncertainty around the viability of these third-party providers. But those court cases have since settled, and now they appear to be gaining more traction in the SAP community. So I'll be curious to see if there's more third-party support providers that pop up throughout the ecosystem, and what this means to overall third-party support in general, which I think is a good thing. Anytime there's competition, that's a good thing for customers. And most importantly, I wonder what this means to the overall ERP software landscape. Is this potentially the beginning of the end for the old monolithic ERP model? Is it potentially the beginning of the end of the let's double down on cloud movement that we're in the middle of right now? Is it the beginning of a bigger trend towards microservices and best of breed and integration interoperability platforms like Boomi and MuleSoft and Rapid and others? It's yet to be determined, but I think it's foreshadowing some pretty tectonic shifts in the SAP community as well as the broader ERP space. But I'd love to hear from you. I can't read the future any better than you can. I could just base it on what I've seen in the past and what I see in the market right now and what I think will happen in the future. But what do you think? What do you think this means for the SAP community? Do you think this is a smart move on Kingfisher's part? Do you think other companies will follow? Do you think it's a terrible idea? They should be sticking to the SAP's narrative? Love to hear your feedback in the comments below. And if you'd like to learn more about how to navigate your S4HANA upgrade path or potential upgrade path, be sure to check out our guide to successful S4HANA implementations. It's a tech agnostic, no BS, not affiliated with SAP sort of guide that will help you manage and identify risk throughout your S4HANA implementation. You can read that by scanning the QR code right here or go to the links below. So I hope you found this information useful and hope you have a great day. For them, it turns out I started like 3 times. AI-powered recommended just marketing what's the word? AI. Wow, this is gonna be the hardest part. Anytime I have to memorize something, I suck at it.